So just a quick bit about Oxford Computer Group. Um, OCG helps organizations address identity challenges. This is what we're known for. Some of these challenges can often go unnoticed. So what we do is we help align those technical configurations with real world business processes. We do that by conducting deep analysis to uncover different risks that might be hidden, streamline governance with the proven workflows. I noticed that there's several folks here from education and healthcare backgrounds. We do cover several other industries, but those are the ones that we've spent a lot of time with over the last few years. Um, and our approach also supports modernization by extending those cloud identity capabilities into the on-premises and hybrid environments. So today we're going to be discussing technology that's built by Microsoft, but not just for Microsoft technologies. All right, so my name is Brandon Nolan. I'm a field CISO here at Oxford Computer Group. If you haven't seen the update, Oxford was acquired in April by Major Key Technologies. It's a US-based organization that solves for end-to-end identity security, whether it be Microsoft or other like Savient, SailPoint, CyberArk are some of the large providers that we work with. All right, so let's get into this. So why this? Why now? We've seen the convergence of several different factors. Some of them like evolving compliance demands, overextended security teams, insider risks that have been rising, and fragmented legacy tools. And what this has done is this has really created what I call like a perfect moment in time. I feel like organizations are already investing in platforms like Microsoft Entra, um, and the appetite for automation and consolidation and measurable security outcomes has really never been stronger. The need is clear, and the tools are mature enough now. So really what we want to focus on is the execution of this. So let's talk about some real world challenges that we see. We regularly see deep custom integrations with those line of business apps like ServiceNow, Workday. If you're in healthcare, you're going to be familiar with like Epic and Cerner. Um, we often encounter users with multiple identities that are tied to their roles. For example, again, in healthcare, medical staff may require distinct identities depending on the duties that they're performing that day or the week, or maybe even the location that they're assigned to. Um, Similarly, service or application managers might use separate accounts for administrative tasks. Each of these identities must be governed by appropriate and specific termination policies as well. We need to make sure that if I've got multiple accounts, that those accounts, if I get terminated as an employee of the organization, that all of those accounts cease to be active upon my termination. If I can't do that and there's manual process involved with that, that could lead to increased risk, and ultimately could turn into a threat. So one of the other things that we see is with multiple identity stores, especially in large complex organizations, those identity stores across the org, we regularly see conflicting identity data because we didn't start with this idea in mind where we were going to have multiple identity stores. That matured and developed over decades of building these different systems in different parts of the organization through mergers and acquisition. You acquire these identity stores. So when we have these and we need to solve a problem like a joiner solution, right? For a joiner that's joining the organization, we need to be able to address and see have visibility into these different identity stores. So this is where we find that conflicting identity data. So that complex workflows that we're talking about, that leverages legacy logic, and that could be based on scripts or even manual input or file dumps. And that conflicting or need for reserved data based on those policies or business needs are things that we see quite often. So couple of quick slides around Entra. If you're not familiar with Microsoft Entra, um, there's there's several different SKUs for Microsoft Entra. At the top, I like this slide because it kind of really hones in on what the purpose of each of these SKUs does. The one that we're specifically going to be talking about today is this Microsoft Entra Suite, which is right here in the middle. So securing access for the employees. And in this, there are several different products because again, it's a suite and Microsoft loves their suites, right? So you get several different products that surround the employees. So securing access for those employees. So you have things like zero trust network access technologies here, zero trust internet access technologies. You have that identity governance is what we're going to spend the majority of today talking about. You also get identity protection, and then you get a premium version of verified ID, which if you're not familiar with, that's blockchain based identification, similar to some other products on the market. But with this premium feature, what it allows you to do is a higher level of assurance with face check. So it allows you to get a liveliness check of the individual that is performing the attestation of presenting that credential um, back to the identity provider. All right. So what is identity governance for Microsoft? So what um, what what it typically looks like is it's a product that solves for your lifecycle workflows. And again, those are your joiner, mover, and leaver scenarios. Um, it addresses your entitlement management. So if you're not familiar with the term entitlement, this would be like your groups of permissions or your permissions to the resources. So if you have an application that somebody needs access to, they would be granted an entitlement to that application or permission to access that application and the level of that permission, right? So if they're an administrator, they would have a higher level of access than somebody who needs to get in and perform a task. Those are very rudimentary versions of entitlements, but that's essentially what that is. And then we need to be able to review and attest to that access that has been granted to those people. So this is where auditing really shines. So we have these access reviews that we can run these campaigns that go out and they look against the entitlements that are effective, and they provide a readout or a report of the effective permissions or entitlements for those users. And then we have obviously, where it meets with compliance and intelligent insights. This is, things like, are we getting the right coverage? Do the people have least privilege in these applications? Are they using the access that they actually have? Should that be managed a little bit differently? This allows us to answer these types of questions. Okay, so from a complexity perspective, we recognize that the manual processes and the configurations present in systems that we've had in the past, maybe like maybe we leverage SailPoint or Savient or One Identity or some other IGA product today. Um, and we understood that addressing the challenges was essential if we're going to help customers unlock the full potential of Entra ID governance and the Entra suite. So with these types of dependencies that we have, we had to come up with let me back up. So we had these real world scenarios when Microsoft first came out with Entra ID governance, where we were positioning it uh, um, as a product where we were moving from one of these other IGA platforms over to Entra ID governance. And we started noticing some patterns around how people were leveraging IGA in their environments. And those different challenges posed things that we felt that we needed to uh, build some more functionality around to speed up the process. We saw that there were some business critical requirements that were difficult in nature to migrate from one platform to the next. So what we then created is we created this concept of putting all of those lessons learned together, and we came out with Oxford's Identity Exchange, which um, if you think about a Swiss Army knife for a second. A Swiss Army knife can do lots of different things. It has obviously a knife in it. It sometimes has screwdrivers or a pair of pliers. It can have scissors. It can have a toothpick. I mean, it's got all kinds of different things in there for different jobs that it needs. So we created Identity Exchange with this kind of metaphor in mind that there are several different things that we could do more efficiently and more effectively. Um, and as we continue to learn and as we continue to work with customers, we're going to be adding more functionality and features to Identity Exchange. So one thing I hear often is Identity Exchange supposed to replace Microsoft Entra? Do I need Entra as well as this? And the answer is yes, you do need Entra. This is not designed to replace it at all. It is basically a bolt-on to the front of Microsoft Entra to extend and enhance the capabilities of it and allow us to move with more flexibility and freedom and still get the benefit of that really amazing integration of the platform that we and the reason why we chose to go to Entra ID. All right, so I'm going to pause for a second and see if there's any questions. It looks like there might be. Will we get
I
access
think
to
you're good so far.
Yeah, it's just asking about the access to the recording and slide deck. Yes, the recording will be available to to rewatch or to provide to other folks. And then we can definitely provide the slide deck as a PDF as well. All right. So, as we described at a really high level, what this what identity exchange is, um, I want to let you know that it's not necessarily a bunch of custom code and things like that. What this actually is it's built on the Azure foundations that we have in our Azure tenant today. So it's built on those building blocks, and it's enhanced with unique logic and workbooks that we've created, AI, leveraging Copilot, and we feel that OCG's IDX solves those real world identity challenges by extending Entra ID governance. So if you think about things like onboarding identities from disparate systems, um, consolidating records from those different systems, looking for conflicts, making sure that there's uniqueness checks done, um, and even like reserving values. These are things that came up quite often when we were going through these scenarios. Okay, so let's look at another one here. So role optimization um, with AI powered insights. Uh, what we've done is we've built out a smart role mining module, leveraging Security Copilot that it allows us to identify access patterns and recommends those least privileged roles. This again enhances that identity governance and accelerates the access review readiness. Looking at managing complex scenarios for like rehire or reserving those values that we'd mentioned, those sorts of things are regularly used and a part of an identity governance program. So being able to maintain that continuity for rehires using those reserved identifiers, things like an email address. Um, so if I have a business process that says I need to keep email addresses for employees after they leave in case of a rehire, or if I have a policy that says, like in education, I've seen this several times where we have the need to have a lifetime identity. The identity never gets deleted. So what do we do with that identity? We need to store that somewhere so that way we don't have a conflict with a future hire with a similar name or those sorts of different scenarios. So this allows us to store that data, and as we create our normal joiner workflows of a new person entering the company, we can perform a check against that data set to ensure that we're not giving out that reserved data. All right. So this chart is to help us see kind of the true nature of identity exchange to enhance the capabilities of the platform, and it's built to be that add-on. It's not a standalone product. It allows us to not only support organizations in consolidating their technical stack, it has enhancements that go beyond, like Copilot with that smart role mining that we had talked about, and the ability to set precedence rules with your data transformations. These are things that you wouldn't find regularly in a different identity governance platform. So we're kind of moving past identity governance and getting into a different realm now. Okay, so let's look under the covers a little bit. Again, this is built on those Azure building blocks that you know and love. Things like Data Factory, Logic Apps, Function Apps. That's the core of this, okay? So we went through the example of the email address, and basically how that would work is that data would then come in and it would reside in that identity database. And that identity database is the database of identity data, not necessarily the identities themselves, but the data, the attributes, if you will, right? So that way we can perform these conflict resolutions and we can reserve values, that sort of thing. So every org has their own unique business logic. Um, And the more that we can automate those pieces of business logic that we have, the more efficiency that we can drive out of that. The more efficiency that we can drive out of that, we also get better security as well. All right, so let's talk about a customer. Um, we talked about how IDX helps us get to value faster. Um, this is a story of a customer that had several complexities that would have normally indicated that this would have been about a 12 plus month effort to migrate from their previous IGA product over to Entra ID Governance. And because of uh, several different things like they didn't want to go transact and contract another extension of the product that they had. They really only had about 7 months to move from that product over to Intra ID Governance. So leveraging identity exchange with the identity governance product, we were able to fully transition them over from that previous IGA solution in that 7 month time with no downtime also. So there were thousands of birthright entitlements that had to be translated and come across. They had now tighter integrations and more automation of those manual processes that they had. So in the past, they had the IGA tool, but they hadn't made the investment and pulled in more of those manual processes. So we were able to clean up more of those manual processes in this time. So essentially, they were better in 7 months than where they started, which is always a great win. Which again means because we're getting rid of this manual process and more automation here, that then in turn means that we have better security, right? There's less probability of people making a mistake. There's less attack surface here as well. So lots of great value from that. One final thing here, we're also able to decrease the administrative burden as they were already leveraging Microsoft tools. So they already knew kind of the look and feel, um, and they were already an intra customer. They just weren't leveraging intra IGA. So less training was needed overall for the organization because they were able to step right in. And even with the identity exchange solution, again, we're just using those building blocks that people are already using as part of that platform. So with the documentation and with the knowledge transfer, they were able to pick it up quite easily. All right, I'm gonna pause, see if there are any questions. No questions, okay. Feel free to use that Q&A if there are any questions or if I need to go a little deeper on something, happy to do that. As I mentioned before, Oxford was recently acquired by Major Key. We're super excited about this acquisition. Oxford has been around for uh, many decades. We've been around since the 80s. The name has been around for a long time. Probably the identity services that you've heard about from us, that came out in the early 2000s, so still a very long time. But we're joining forces with major key technologies, and this is going to allow us to scale and do more. We're building a powerhouse of an organization, to focus on identity security end to end. So I know everybody's got one of these slides, right? Look at us. Here's what we've done. The one most important thing to know here, that we at Major Key in Oxford partner closely with the Microsoft product team and our customers to go way beyond the out-of-box experiences. And if I can leave you with one thing, with AI encroaching in on our businesses, one of the themes that you're going to discover is it's not necessarily the tool choice that you make, but the depth of the integration that you have taken, right? And approaching from a platform perspective is where you're going to get the most value out of your AI investments. Specifically in identity integration investments, that's the fabric that binds the majority of the user workflows and the experiences. And this is where you're going to see your largest AI values discovered. So just something to keep in mind and ponder as you kind of go through that with your organization. You start thinking about it. It makes sense, right? So if you are trying to put Copilot or some other AI tool in your environment, if you've got data all over the place, it's much harder to consolidate and get a view of what that is. It's much easier and much higher quality results if you have it in a single platform. That's really how that statement works, right? So thank you so much for the time. I appreciate the time spent today. I know that we've got a few minutes left here. I'd love to open it up for any questions, if there are any. If you would like to hear more about this, we do have readiness workshops that we can sit down with you and your teams and kind of go more in depth, more detail here about the solution, how that works, and kind of do a realm of possibilities. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great week and happy Juneteenth tomorrow. If you're off, awesome. If not, have a great rest of the week, and we'll catch you next time.